The fluorescent lights of Chicago O'Hare International Airport buzzed with the kind of sterile indifference that made everything feel temporary. Gate C-17 was packed with the usual chaos of a Friday evening. Business travelers hunched over laptops, families corralling overtired children, couples arguing in hushed tones about missed connections. Chen sat in the corner seat closest to the window, her worn leather messenger bag tucked protectively between her feet. Inside were three things that mattered: her laptop with half-finished freelance articles that were due Monday, a wallet containing $83 and a maxed-out credit card, and a bottle of prescription medication she couldn't afford to refill next month. She was 28 years old and so tired the exhaustion had settled into her bones like concrete. Two jobs. Freelance writing that paid in exposure more often than actual money. Night shifts at a 24-hour diner in Pilsen, where the tips were decent but the customers were occasionally handsy. And beneath it all, medical debt from her mother's cancer treatment that had stretched across 2 years before Chen finally lost the fight 6 months ago. Maya pulled her cardigan tighter. The airport air conditioning was aggressive, and her flight to New York had been delayed 3 times already. Another hour. Maybe 2. She'd stopped believing the gate agent's updates after the second announcement. That's when she heard it. A sound that cut through the ambient noise of the terminal like a knife. Small, broken, the kind of crying that came from a child who had been holding it together for as long as possible before finally shattering. Maya looked up. About 20 feet away, near the charging station, a little boy sat on the industrial carpet, his knees pulled to his chest, his face buried in his arms. He was maybe 5 years old, wearing clothes that even Maya's untrained eye recognized as expensive. Dark pants with a perfect crease, a white button-down shirt, tiny leather shoes that probably cost more than her rent, and he was completely alone. Maya scanned the immediate area. No frantic parent rushing over, no nanny or guardian hovering nearby, just a small child in a sea of indifferent travelers, crying like his heart was breaking. She waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Surely someone would notice. Someone would claim him. No one did. The businessman 2 seats over didn't even look up from his phone. The family across the aisle was too busy arguing about whether they'd make their connection. A woman in yoga pants walked right past the boy, stepping over his legs like he was an obstacle rather than a terrified child. Maya's chest tightened with something that felt like anger mixed with grief. 6 months. It had been 6 months since she'd held her mother's hand in that sterile hospital room and watched the monitor flatline. 6 months since she'd become an orphan at 28. 6 months of waking up to the crushing reality that she had no family left, no siblings. Her father had died when she was 12. It was just her now. Alone. And this child, whoever he was alone too. At least for this moment. Maya stood up before her rational brain could talk her out of it. She crossed the distance and knelt down beside the boy. Up close she could see he was younger than she'd thought. Maybe 4. His dark hair was slightly mussed, and his cheeks were wet with tears. He wore a watch on his wrist that looked absurdly large and expensive for someone so small. The boy didn't look up. He just kept crying. Those awful hitching sobs that meant he'd moved past panic into despair. Maya's heart cracked wide open. She thought about her mother, about how Chen had always stopped for crying children in grocery stores, at parks, anywhere a kid seemed lost or scared. "Someone's baby is hurting," her mother would say. "How can we just walk past that?" Maya reached out slowly and placed her hand gently on the boy's small shoulder. He flinched but didn't pull away. "Hey, sweetheart," Maya said softly, making her voice as warm and safe as she could. "I know you're scared. I can see that you're really, really scared right now." The crying hitched, slowed just a fraction. "My name is Maya," she continued, keeping her hand steady on his shoulder. "And I need you to know something really important. Are you listening?" The boy lifted his head just slightly, not looking at her, but listening. Maya took a breath and said the words that came from somewhere deep and instinctive, the same place her mother's voice lived in her memory. "Stop crying, sweetheart. I'll be your mom tonight." The boy's head snapped up. His eyes were dark brown, rimmed with red from crying, and filled with the kind of terror that no child should ever experience. He stared at Maya like he was trying to figure out if she was real, if what she just said was a trick or a promise. You'll be my mom?" His voice was so small, so broken. "Tonight, yes. Just for tonight, until we find your real mom or dad." Maya smiled gently, keeping her hand on his shoulder. "That means I'm going to stay right here with you. I'm going to make sure you're safe and not alone. I'm going to take care of you until your family comes, okay?" The boy searched her face. Then, in a voice that absolutely destroyed Maya, he whispered, "My mom's not here anymore. She died." Oh God. Maya felt tears prick her own eyes. This child, this small lost child who had already experienced the worst loss imaginable. "Mine too," Maya said quietly. "My mom died 6 months ago, so I know how much that hurts. I know how much you miss her." Something changed in the boy's expression. Recognition. Connection. The understanding that the person kneeling in front of him wasn't just a stranger saying words. She was someone who understood his specific kind of pain. "You miss your mom too?" he asked. "Every single day," Maya admitted. "But you know what my mom taught me? She taught me that when someone is scared and alone, we stop and help. We don't walk past, we stay." If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The boy was quiet for a moment. Then he wiped his nose on his sleeve and said, "I'm Luca." "Hi, Luca. It's really nice to meet you." Maya sat down fully on the carpet next to him, not caring about the dirt or the strange looks from passing travelers. "So, Luca, can you tell me what happened? How did you end up here by yourself?" Luca's lower lip trembled. "I was with Aunt Teresa. She's my dad's friend. She was supposed to take me to meet my dad because he was coming back from a trip. But there were so many people and she was talking on the phone, and then I saw a service dog, and I wanted to pet it, and when I turned around, she was gone." His voice rose with panic. "I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find her, and I called her name, but there were too many people, and it was so loud, and I got scared and I didn't know what to do and—" "Shh, it's okay. You're okay now." Maya kept her voice steady even though her anger at this Teresa person was building. Who loses track of a 4-year-old in an airport? "Luca, do you know your dad's phone number?" Luca nodded, still hiccuping slightly from crying. "My dad made me memorize it. He said it's important." "Your dad sounds smart. Can you tell me the number?" Luca recited it carefully, his little voice gaining confidence with each digit. Maya pulled out her cracked iPhone and typed in the number, noting the Chicago area code. Before she hit call, she looked at Luca. "What's your dad's name?" "Dante Valentino." Maya's hand froze over the call button. Valentino. She'd lived in Chicago long enough to know that name, to have heard it whispered in certain circles. Dante Valentino owned half the Italian restaurants in the city, owned real estate, ran import businesses, and if the rumors were true, and Maya suspected they were, he also ran things that weren't listed on any business license. She was about to call a Mafia boss to tell him his son was lost. Maya looked at Luca's small, tear-stained face, at this 4-year-old child who had already lost his mother and was now terrified he'd lost his father too. It didn't matter who Dante Valentino was or what he did. What mattered was getting this child back to his parent. She hit call. It rang twice. Then a voice answered, deep and controlled, but with an undercurrent of tension. Valentino. Mr. Valentino, my name is Maya Chen. I'm at O'Hare Airport, Gate C-17. I'm here with your son, Luca. He's safe, but he got separated from someone named Teresa and... Put him on. The command was absolute. Put Luca on the phone right now. Maya handed the phone to Luca. It's your dad, honey. Luca grabbed the phone with both hands. Dad? His whole face transformed with relief. Dad. I got lost. Aunt Teresa was on the phone and I wanted to see the service dog and then she was gone and I couldn't find anyone and I was really scared. But then Maya came and she said she'd be my mom tonight and... Maya couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Luca's face cycle through emotions. Relief, fear, guilt. Then something that looked like confusion. Yeah, she's right here. She's been really nice to me. She promised to stay until you come. Luca looked at Maya. My dad wants to talk to you again. Maya took the phone back. Mr. Valentino? Miss Chen. His voice had changed, still controlled, but now there was something underneath it she couldn't quite identify. My son tells me you promised to be his mother tonight. It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. He was alone and terrified. I told him I'd stay with him until you arrived, that I'd take care of him. A pause. Then, why? The question caught her off guard. Because he's a child who needed help. Most people would have found an airport employee, handed him off to security. They wouldn't have gotten personally involved. I'm not most people, Maya said simply. And Luca didn't need to be handed off like lost luggage. He needed someone to stay. Another pause. Longer this time. When Dante spoke again, his voice was rough. I'm 20 minutes away. Traffic from downtown is heavy. Miss Chen, I need you to keep your promise. I need you to stay with my son until I get there. Please. The please sounded like it cost him something. I'll stay, Maya promised. We're not going anywhere. Thank you. Then, before hanging up, Miss Chen, there will be men arriving before I do. Security. They'll be looking for Luca. Don't let anyone take him except me personally. No one else. Do you understand? A chill ran down Maya's spine. I understand. Good. The line went dead. Maya looked at the phone in her hand, then at Luca, who was watching her with those huge dark eyes. Your dad is on his way, Maya said, forcing brightness into her voice. He'll be here really soon. Are you really going to stay? Luca asked. You promised you'd be my mom tonight. Does that mean you'll stay until my dad comes? Maya looked at this small, motherless child who was clinging to the promise she'd made with the desperation of someone who'd had too many people leave already. She thought about her flight to New York, about the interview, about all the rational reasons she should flag down an airport employee and extricate herself from this situation. Then she thought about her own mother, about what Linda Chen would do in this situation. Maya reached out and tucked a strand of Luca's dark hair back from his forehead. I promised, didn't I? And moms don't break promises. I'm staying right here until your dad arrives. Luca's face crumpled with relief. Then he did something that made Maya's breath catch. He climbed into her lap, wrapped his small arms around her waist and buried his face against her shoulder. Maya's arms came around him automatically, holding him close. He was so small, so warm, so trusting despite everything. Thank you for being my mom tonight, Luca whispered against her shoulder. Maya felt tears slip down her cheeks. You're welcome, sweetheart. You're so welcome. They sat like that for several minutes, Maya holding Luca, both of them finding comfort in the contact. Around them, the airport continued its chaos, but in their small bubble, there was stillness. Finally, Luca pulled back a little. I'm hungry, he admitted quietly. Aunt Teresa said we'd get food after we found my dad, but that was a long time ago. Maya checked her phone. It was nearly 7:30 p.m. If Luca had been waiting here for an hour or more, the poor kid was probably starving. She thought about the $83 in her wallet, about the bills waiting at home, about the fact that she'd just quit her diner job after one too many customers thought her uniform was an invitation. Then she looked at Luca's hopeful face. "Okay, here's what we're going to do," Maya said, making her voice conspiratorial like she was sharing a secret. "We're going to go to the information desk over there and tell them you're looking for your family. They can make an announcement. And then, we're going to get you some food. What do you like to eat?" "Chicken nuggets," Luca said immediately. Then, more hesitantly, "But my dad says I should have vegetables too." "Your dad sounds like a good dad. How about chicken nuggets and some fruit?" "Okay." Luca's smile was tentative but real. They went to the gate desk first. The agent, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes named Patricia, listened to Maya's explanation with growing concern. "I'll make an announcement for Teresa Romano immediately," Patricia said, already reaching for the microphone. "And I'm going to contact airport security. They should know there's a separated child." "His father is on his way," Maya added. "Dante Valentino. He should be here in about 15 minutes. Something flickered across Patricia's face at the name. Recognition. Maybe wariness. But she nodded professionally. "I'll make a note. Thank you for staying with him." Maya led Luca toward the food court, keeping his small hand firmly in hers. They found a place that sold chicken nuggets, and Maya ordered a kid's meal with apple slices and a chocolate milk. "Aren't you going to eat?" Luca asked, watching her order only water for herself. "I already ate," Maya lied smoothly. The truth was she'd skipped lunch to save money and had been planning to eat the airline pretzels on her flight. But Luca didn't need to know that. They found a table near the windows. Luca ate with the focused intensity of someone who was genuinely hungry, carefully dunking each nugget in ketchup and actually eating the apple slices without complaint. "You're really good at being a mom," Luca said suddenly, looking up at her with complete seriousness. "Did you practice?" The question hit Maya like a fist to the chest. "I learned from my own mom. She was really good at taking care of me." "Do you miss her?" "Every single day," Maya said honestly. "But you know what helps? When I do things I know she would have done, like helping someone who needs help. That makes me feel like she's still here, in a way." Luca thought about this. "My mom used to read me stories before bed. Sometimes I try to remember them, but I can't remember all the words anymore." He was 4, maybe 5. Which meant he'd lost his mother young enough that memories were already fading. Maya's heart broke for him. "What kind of stories did she read?" Maya asked gently. "Stories about dragons, and knights, and magic." Luca took a sip of his chocolate milk. "She used to do all the voices. The dragon voice was really funny." "Your mom sounds wonderful." "She was." Luca's expression went distant for a moment. "Dad says she's watching over me from heaven. Do you think that's true?" Maya thought about her own beliefs, her own grief, her own desperate hope that death wasn't just an ending. "I think the people who love us never really leave us. They're in here." She touched her chest. "In our hearts. And yeah, I think they're watching out for us." "Then my mom sent you," Luca said with the absolute certainty of a child. "She knew I needed a mom tonight and she sent you." Maya's throat tightened with emotion. Maybe she did. They finished eating and returned to gate C-17. The announcement for Teresa Romano had played multiple times. There was still no sign of her. But something else had changed. 3 men in dark suits had appeared near the gate. They weren't airport security. They were something else entirely. Private security. The kind that protected people who needed more than standard protection. They were scanning the crowd with professional efficiency. Looking for something. Looking for Luca. One of them spotted Maya and Luca at their table. He spoke into his wrist, and all 3 men started moving toward them. Maya's instinct was to run. to grab Luca and disappear into the crowd, but she remembered Dante's words. There will be men arriving before I do. Security. The lead man stopped a respectful distance away. He was tall, built like a former soldier, with a face that had seen violence and delivered it. But when he looked at Luca, his expression softened. Luca, he said, his voice gentle. Your dad sent us to make sure you're okay. Luca pressed closer to Maya. I don't know you. My name is Marco. I work for your father. I've been at your house before, remember? I was at your birthday party. Luca studied him uncertainly. Then recognition flickered. You brought me the big dinosaur toy. That's right. Marco smiled. Your dad is almost here. He's maybe 5 minutes away. He asked me to come ahead and make sure you're safe. His eyes shifted to Maya. You must be Miss Chen. Thank you for staying with him. I promised I would, Maya said simply. Marco's expression shifted to something that might have been respect. Not many people would have. Then not many people know what it's like to be a scared kid, Maya replied. They waited. Marco and his team positioned themselves around the gate area, creating a subtle perimeter. Maya noticed how other travelers instinctively gave them space, sensing something in their presence that suggested danger. Luca had climbed back into Maya's lap, his head resting against her shoulder. He was getting tired, the adrenaline crash catching up with him. Maya? He murmured. Yeah, honey. When my dad comes, will you still be my mom tonight? Or does it end when he gets here? The question made Maya's chest ache. What do you want? I want you to stay, Luca said quietly. Just for a little bit longer, so I can remember what it feels like. Maya blinked back tears. Then I'll stay as long as you need me to. Promise. I promise. 2 minutes later, the energy in the gate area changed. Maya felt it before she saw it, the way Marco and his team straightened, the way travelers moved aside without being asked, the way the very air seemed to compress. Dante Valentino had arrived. Maya saw him before he saw them. He was moving through the terminal like a force of nature, all controlled power and barely contained fury. He was tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than Maya's entire year's rent. His dark hair was styled back from his face, revealing features that were striking. Strong jaw, straight nose, full lips currently pressed into a hard line, but it was his eyes that caught her. Dark brown, almost black, and currently scanning the gate area with an intensity that was almost frightening. Then his gaze landed on Luca. Everything about him changed. The fury banked. The hard edges softened. The dangerous man disappeared and was replaced by a father who had been terrified he'd lost his child. Luca, he said, and his voice cracked on the name. Luca's head snapped up. Dad! He scrambled out of Maya's lap and ran toward his father. Dante closed the distance in 3 strides and dropped to his knees, catching Luca and pulling him into his arms with enough force that Maya heard his sharp intake of breath. Dio, Dante breathed, his face buried in Luca's dark hair. Dio mio, I thought, when Teresa called and said you were gone. I'm sorry, Dad, Luca said, his voice muffled against his father's shoulder. I didn't mean to get lost. I just wanted to see the dog and... Not your fault. This was never your fault. Dante pulled back just enough to look at his son, his hands cupping Luca's face as he inspected him for injuries with visible desperation. Are you hurt? Did anyone touch you? Did anyone hurt you? No. Maya took care of me. She promised to be my mom tonight. Dante went very still. His eyes lifted from his son and found Maya. She was still sitting in the airport chair, her hands folded in her lap, feeling like an intruder in this intimate reunion. But when Dante Valentino's dark gaze fixed on her, she felt the impact like a physical thing. He was looking at her the way someone looks at a miracle they don't quite believe in. Dante stood slowly, lifting Luca with him. He kept one arm securely around his son as he crossed to where Maya sat. Up close, he was even more imposing, broad-shouldered, radiating controlled power, his presence filling the space like gravity. "You're Maya Chen," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. You told my son you'd be his mother tonight." Maya felt her cheeks heat. Out of context, without the emotion of that moment, it sounded presumptuous, overstepping. "He was scared and alone. I just wanted him to feel safe until you arrived." Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something she didn't expect. He reached out with his free hand and touched her shoulder. The same gentle touch she'd given Luca. "Miss Chen, I don't know how to thank you properly for what you did. My son is everything to me. Everything. The fact that you stayed with him, protected him, made him feel safe." His voice roughened and he had to stop. Maya saw his throat work as he swallowed hard. When he continued, his words were quieter. Teresa Romano was supposed to be watching him. She had one job: keep my son safe until I landed, and she failed. If you hadn't been here— "But I was here," Maya interrupted gently. "And Luca's safe. That's what matters." "Where's Aunt Teresa?" Luca asked suddenly, looking around as if just remembering. Dante's expression went cold. "We're going to have a conversation about that, but not here." He looked at Marco. "Find her. I want her in my office within the hour." "Yes, sir." Marco pulled out his phone and stepped away. Dante turned back to Maya. "Miss Chen, I understand you missed your flight." Maya blinked. "How did you—" "Marco's team has been monitoring the situation since you called. They saw you didn't board." Dante shifted Luca in his arms. "Where were you traveling?" "New York. I have a job interview Monday morning." "What time?" 10 a.m. Dante pulled out his phone with his free hand, typing something with practiced speed. "There's a flight leaving in 90 minutes. First class. I'm booking you a seat now." "Mr. Valentino, that's really not necessary." "It's the bare minimum of what's necessary." His tone left no room for argument. "You sacrificed your travel plans for my son. The least I can do is ensure you still reach your destination." He looked up from his phone. "The ticket will be at the United counter. Confirmation number is being sent to your phone now." Maya's phone buzzed. She looked down at the screen and saw an email confirmation for a first-class ticket to New York JFK. Departure in 90 minutes. Ticket value, $2,100. Her stomach dropped. "I can't accept this. It's too much." "You can, and you will." Dante's voice was gentle, but firm. "Miss Chen, my son told me what you said to him. Stop crying, I'll be your mom tonight." "Do you understand what that meant to him? What it still means?" Maya looked at Luca, who was watching her with those huge dark eyes. "My wife, Luca's mother, died 2 years ago," Dante said quietly. "Luca barely remembers her. He's been without a mother's care for most of his life. The fact that you, a complete stranger, would offer him that comfort." He stopped, emotion flickering across his controlled features. "There's no price that adequately compensates that kind of kindness, but I can at least make sure your kindness doesn't cost you an opportunity." Maya's throat was tight. "I just did what anyone should have done." "But they didn't." Dante gestured around the terminal. "Hundreds of people walked past my crying son. You stopped. You stayed. You kept your promise." His dark eyes held hers. "I don't forget debts, Miss Chen. And I take care of people who take care of what's mine." The possessiveness in his tone should have been off-putting. Instead, it felt like a vow. "Maya?" Luca's small voice interrupted. "Do you have to go?" Maya looked at this child she'd known for less than 3 hours but who had somehow carved out a space in her heart. "I do, honey. I have to catch my plane." "But you're still my mom tonight, right? You promised until my dad came and you'd stay a little longer. Luca, Dante said gently. Miss Chen has been very kind, but she has her own life. I can stay a few more minutes, Maya interrupted. She looked at Dante. If that's okay with you. Just until he's ready for me to go. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition of something he hadn't expected to find in a stranger at an airport. Please, he said simply. They moved to a quieter area of the terminal. Dante sat down with Luca on his lap, and Maya sat beside them. For a few minutes they just existed in that space, a father and son reunited, and the woman who had bridged the gap of terror between them. Maya tells stories, Luca told his father. She told me one about a dragon who was scared of heights, but learned to fly anyway. Did she? Dante looked at Maya with interest. That sounds like a good story. She said she's a writer. She makes up stories for her job. Is that true? Dante asked Maya. Freelance journalist, Maya clarified. I write articles mostly. The stories are just something I do for fun. She made the dragon sound real, Luca said. Like he was really there. They talked for a while longer, easy conversation that felt surreal given the circumstances. Dante was different than Maya expected. Yes, he was intense and obviously dangerous, but with his son, he was gentle, attentive, present in a way that spoke of genuine devotion. Finally, Maya checked her phone. I need to head to my gate. Luca's face fell. Do you have to? I do, sweetheart, but you know what? You have your dad now. You're safe. You're home. Will I ever see you again? Luca asked, and the hopefulness in his voice was devastating. Maya looked at Dante, unsure how to answer. This was a one-time encounter, a chance meeting that would fade into memory. But Dante was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Miss Chen, he said slowly, I meant what I said about debts. I take care of people who take care of what's mine, and I'd very much like to stay in contact. To properly thank you once I've handled the situation with Teresa. To make sure your interview goes well. He paused. To make sure you're taken care of the way you took care of my son. There was something in his tone, not quite a question, more like a statement of intent. Maya should probably say no, should recognize the complexity of getting involved with someone like Dante Valentino, should protect herself from the dangerous world he clearly inhabited. Instead, she found herself saying, I'd like that. Dante pulled out a business card and a pen. He wrote something on the back and handed it to her. My personal number. Not many people have it. If you need anything at all, you call me, day or night. I will answer. Maya took the card. On the front, Valentino Enterprises. On the back, a phone number in bold handwriting. She pulled out one of her own freelance business cards and handed it to him. My number. For when Luca wants to know how the dragon story ends. Dante's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. I'll make sure he calls. Maya stood. It was time to go. Time to return to her own messy life and let these two people she'd briefly intersected with return to theirs. She knelt down in front of Luca. Hey, sweetheart, I have to go catch my plane now. Luca's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for being my mom tonight. Thank you for letting me, Maya whispered. She pulled him into a hug, feeling his small arms wrap around her neck. You're going to be okay, Luca. You have the best dad in the world, and he loves you so much. I love you too, Luca said against her shoulder. Even though I just met you. Maya's vision blurred. I love you too, baby. She pulled back, kissed his forehead, and stood. She met Dante's eyes one last time. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving him something he needed more than safety. You gave him comfort. You gave him the feeling of being cared for in the exact way he's been missing. That's... His voice roughened. That's a gift I can never repay. You don't need to repay kindness, Maya said. You just pass it forward. She walked away before her emotions could overwhelm her completely. She made it to the security checkpoint before she let herself look back. Dante and Luca were still there. Luca was waving, and Dante had his hand raised in acknowledgement. Maya waved back, then turned and walked through security. She had no way of knowing that walking away from Dante Valentino was the most dangerous and life-changing thing she'd ever done. Because Dante Valentino never forgot a debt. And he'd just decided that Maya Chen was under his protection permanently, whether she knew it yet or not. Maya's first-class seat to New York was everything she'd never experienced in air travel. Leather that felt like butter. A flight attendant who brought warm towels and asked her preference for pre-departure beverages. Legroom that actually allowed her to stretch out. She should have been grateful. Should have been relaxing into the luxury that Dante Valentino had provided. Instead, she couldn't stop thinking about a 4-year-old boy with dark eyes who had wrapped his arms around her neck and said, "I love you," to a stranger. Her phone buzzed as the plane taxied toward the runway, a text from an unknown number. Luca wanted me to tell you we made it home safely. He's asking when you'll call to finish the dragon story. Devi Maya stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She should probably maintain distance, should let this strange encounter fade into a pleasant memory rather than becoming something more complicated. Instead, she typed, "Tell him the dragon learned that sometimes being brave means asking for help when you're scared. I'll call tomorrow to tell him the rest." The response came immediately. "He'll hold you to that. Thank you again for everything. Safe travels." Maya put her phone in airplane mode and closed her eyes as the plane lifted off. She had no way of knowing that 3,000 miles away, Dante Valentino was staring at her business card like it contained secrets, already running background checks, already ensuring that Maya Chen would never be unsafe again. And she definitely didn't know that Teresa Romano was currently sitting in Dante's office, trembling as she tried to explain how she'd lost his son in an airport. The interview Monday morning was for a position at a mid-sized publishing house in Manhattan. Editorial assistant. Salary of $52,000. Benefits. Stability. Everything Maya desperately needed. She wore her best blazer, the one she'd bought at a thrift store and had tailored to fit properly. Answered questions about her experience with the kind of professional competence she'd perfected through years of juggling multiple jobs. Smiled at the right moments. Showed enthusiasm without desperation. "We'll be in touch by end of week," the hiring manager said, shaking her hand. "You're definitely in our top 3 candidates." Top 3. Not a guarantee, not a rejection. Just more waiting. Maya left the building and stood on the Manhattan sidewalk, trying to figure out her next move. She'd booked a cheap hostel in Brooklyn for 2 nights. After that, she'd need to head back to Chicago and figure out how to survive while waiting for job responses that might never come. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Maya." Luca's voice was bright with excitement. "Dad said you'd call today, but then you didn't call, so he said I could call you instead. Is that okay?" Maya felt her chest warm despite the November cold. "That's definitely okay, sweetheart. I was actually just about to call you. How are you doing?" "Good. Dad made me pancakes this morning and we went to the park and I told him about how you said the dragon had to ask for help, and he said that was a very smart dragon." "Your dad's right." Maya started walking, not sure where she was going but needing to move. "So do you want to hear what happened next in the story?" "Yes." For the next 15 minutes, Maya spun the continuation of the dragon's adventure, making her voice animated, creating new characters and challenges. She was so absorbed in the storytelling that she didn't notice she'd walked nearly 10 blocks until she found herself in front of a small park. "And that's how the dragon learned that being small didn't mean being weak," Maya finished. "Sometimes the smallest creatures are the bravest." That was the best story ever, Luca declared. Maya, when are you coming to visit? The question caught her off guard. Oh, honey, I'm in New York right now. That's pretty far from Chicago. But you'll come back, right? You promised you'd be my mom tonight, and tonight isn't over because I haven't gone to bed yet. Maya's throat tightened. From a child's perspective, the logic was flawless. She'd promised to be his mom tonight. And in Luca's world, tonight lasted until he fell asleep. Luca, sweetheart. Let me talk to her. Dante's voice in the background, gentle but firm. There was a rustling sound, then his deeper voice came through. Miss Chen, I apologize. Luca has been talking about you nonstop since Friday. I tried to explain that you have your own life in New York, but he's 4 and doesn't quite understand geography or boundaries yet. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. It's fine, Maya said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Really, I love talking to him. He's a sweet kid. He is. There was a pause. How did your interview go? Good, I think. They said I'm in the top 3 candidates. I should hear back by Friday. And if you don't get it? Maya leaned against a park bench, watching strangers hurry past. Then I keep applying, keep freelancing, keep surviving until something sticks. Another pause. Then, Miss Chen, may I ask you something directly? Maya, you can call me Maya. Maya. The way he said her name felt deliberate, like he was testing the weight of it. Are you struggling financially? The question should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like genuine concern. Is anyone in their 20s not struggling financially? That's not an answer. Maya sighed. I'm managing. Barely. Medical debt from my mother's cancer treatment. Lost my second job last week. Freelancing doesn't pay enough to cover bills. But I'm not starving or homeless, so I'm doing better than some people. What kind of freelancing do you do? Articles, mostly. Human interest pieces. Some travel writing when I can afford to actually travel, which is never. Personal essays. Anything that pays. She laughed without humor. I'm good at making 700 words sound interesting. I have a proposition for you. Maya's guard went up instantly. Mr. Valentino. Dante. And before you assume this is something inappropriate, let me explain. His voice was businesslike now, controlled. I own several legitimate businesses in Chicago. Restaurants, real estate, import companies. We need content for websites, press releases, marketing materials. Currently, we outsource this work to an agency that charges premium rates for mediocre quality. He paused. I'm offering you a contract position. Freelance, so you maintain independence. 20 articles per month. Various topics related to my businesses. $1,500 per article. That's $30,000 per month. $360,000 annually. Maya's brain stuttered trying to process those numbers. That's insane. No one pays $1,500 for a single article. I do. For quality work. For someone I trust. His voice softened slightly. Maya, you took care of my son when he was vulnerable. You kept a promise to a child you'd never met. That tells me you have integrity. I want to work with people who have integrity. This feels like charity disguised as business. It's business disguised as gratitude, Dante corrected. I genuinely need the content. You genuinely need the income. This is a mutually beneficial arrangement. The only unusual aspect is that I'm offering you significantly more than market rate because I can afford to and because I want to. Maya's mind raced. $360,000 a year. That would pay off her medical debt in months, would let her stop living paycheck to paycheck, would give her breathing room for the first time in years. It was too much. Too convenient. Too perfect. Why? she asked. Really, why? You don't owe me this much for watching Luca for a few hours? Don't I? Dante's voice was quiet. Maya, do you know what Teresa Romano was doing when she lost track of my son? She was on the phone, Luca said. She was confirming dinner reservations at a restaurant. She was so focused on impressing her boyfriend that she forgot she was responsible for my child's safety. The controlled fury in his voice was chilling. If you hadn't been there, if Luca had wandered further, if someone with bad intentions had found him first. He stopped, unable to finish the thought. Teresa is no longer in my employ, Dante continued. She's also no longer welcome in Chicago, though she doesn't know that yet. But the point is, you did something she was paid to do and failed at. You did it without payment, without obligation, purely because a child needed help. So no, I don't think 360,000 annually is too much. I think it's barely adequate. Maya sat down on the park bench, her legs suddenly unsteady. I need to think about this. Of course, take your time. A pause. Though I should mention, the offer has an expiration. If you don't accept by end of day Wednesday, I'll need to engage the agency for our Q1 content needs. That's 2 days from now. Yes. I need a decision quickly. Business doesn't wait. His tone shifted, becoming less formal. But Maya, understand this isn't just about business for me. Luca has been different since Friday. Happier. More settled. He talks about you constantly. He wants you in his life. And He paused. I want people around my son who genuinely care about his welfare. You proved you're one of those people. Dante, I live in New York. Well, I'm trying to live in New York. How would I even? The work is remote. You can live anywhere. Right from Chicago, right from New York, right from a beach in Thailand for all I care. As long as the content is quality and on deadline, location doesn't matter. He was removing every logical objection she could raise, every barrier to saying yes. I need to think, Maya repeated. Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central Time. Text me your decision. He paused. And Maya, regardless of your answer, Luca would still like you to call. If you're comfortable with that, he's attached to you. In a way he hasn't been attached to anyone since his mother died. The weight of that statement settled over her. I'll call him tomorrow, to finish the dragon story. Thank you. The relief in Dante's voice was palpable. He'll be delighted. They hung up. Maya sat on the park bench for a long time, watching the November afternoon fade into evening, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 3 days ago, she was a struggling freelancer with $83 and no prospects. Now she had a job offer that would solve all her financial problems, from a man who was clearly connected to Chicago's underworld because she'd comforted his lost son at an airport. It sounded like the premise of a movie, or a trap. Maya pulled out Dante's business card, studying the elegant lettering, Valentino Enterprises. She typed the name into her phone's browser. The results were impressive. Dante Valentino, 34 years old, owned a portfolio of successful businesses throughout Chicago. His restaurants had Michelin stars. His real estate developments were featured in architectural magazines. His import company specialized in high-end Italian goods. There were also whispers, forum posts that were quickly deleted, Reddit threads that went nowhere, suggestions of connections to organized crime, but nothing concrete, nothing proven. Either Dante Valentino was very good at keeping his business clean, or very good at making the dirty business invisible. Maya spent that night in her hostel bunk, staring at the ceiling, doing math in her head. 360,000 a year. After taxes, probably around 250,000. That was life-changing money. That was freedom. But it came attached to a man whose world included private security, disappeared employees, and a level of power that made airport staff nervous when they heard his name. Was she really considering this? Tuesday morning, she called Luca as promised. They talked for 30 minutes about dragons and school, and the puppy Dante was considering getting. Luca's joy at hearing from her was obvious and genuine. Maya, are you coming home soon? Luca asked toward the end of the call. Home? To Chicago. Dad says Chicago is your home too. Did he? Maya felt something flutter in her chest. Well, I'm not sure yet, sweetheart. I'm still in New York. But you'll come back, right? Because I miss you. Those 3 words from a 4-year-old she'd known for a few hours shouldn't have had the power to make her tear up. But they did. I miss you too, Luca. After they hung up, Maya walked to a coffee shop and opened her laptop. She pulled up the sample topics Dante had emailed, articles about seasonal menu changes at his restaurants, profile pieces on his executive team, content about Italian import processes. They were legitimate business needs. Nothing shady or suspicious. Just standard marketing content. She started writing a sample piece about authentic Italian olive oil sourcing. The words flowed easily, her journalism background making the research and writing feel natural. Within an hour, she had an 800-word article that would work perfectly for a company website. Maya read it over, made minor edits, then emailed it to Dante with a simple subject line, sample work. His response came within 5 minutes. This is exactly the quality I'm looking for. Does this mean you're accepting the position? Maya stared at the email. This was the moment. Say yes and tie herself to Dante Valentino's world. Say no and go back to struggling, uncertain freelance work and medical debt that would take decades to pay off. She thought about her mother, about Linda Chen working double shifts as a nurse to keep their family afloat, about how her mother had never hesitated to help people who needed it, even when helping was hard. What would you do, Mom? Maya thought. Would you take money from a man who might be dangerous? Would you trust someone because they love their kid and treat you with respect? She could almost hear her mother's voice. Baby, sometimes the right choice doesn't look perfect. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts about people, not your fears about situations. Maya hit reply. I'm accepting. When do I start? Dante's response was immediate. Immediately. I'll have contracts drawn up by end of day. Wire transfer for your first month will process by Thursday. Welcome to Valentino Enterprises, Maya. I think this is going to be a very good partnership. Maya closed her laptop and let out a long breath. She just accepted a job offer from a possible mob boss because his 4-year-old son missed her, and she couldn't afford to say no. Either this was the best decision she'd ever made, or the most dangerous. Wednesday afternoon, Maya received an email with a contract from Valentino Enterprises. It was surprisingly straightforward. 20 articles per month, 1,500 per article, payment on the first of each month. Either party could terminate with 30 days' notice. There was also a separate document, a confidentiality agreement, standard for most contracts, but this one had specific language about not disclosing information about Valentino family members, business operations, or any activities observed or discussed during the course of employment. Maya signed both documents, scanned them, and sent them back. Thursday morning, her bank account showed a wire transfer for $30,000. Maya stared at her phone screen, at the number that represented more money than she'd ever had at one time. The medical debt that had been crushing her for 2 years could be paid down to manageable levels. Her overdue rent could be caught up. She could buy groceries without checking prices. She sat on her hostel bed and cried. When her phone rang an hour later, it was Dante. The contracts are finalized, he said. You're officially employed by Valentino Enterprises. I've sent you a content calendar for December. First article is due Monday. I saw the deposit, Maya said, her voice still rough from crying. Thank you. You don't thank employers for paying you what you're worth, Dante replied. This is business, Maya. You deliver quality content, I pay you appropriately. That's how employment works. Most employers don't wire $30,000 before you've written a single article. Most employers don't have my resources or my priorities. He paused. Maya, have you given any thought to where you'll be working? You mentioned you were only in New York for the interview. I haven't heard back yet. They said Friday, but… Maya trailed off. Honestly, I don't know. I can't afford to stay in New York much longer. I was planning to head back to Chicago this weekend and figure things out from there. Then come to Chicago. Dante's tone was casual, but there was something underneath it. Work from here, at least temporarily. I have a property in Lincoln Park. Furnished apartment, 2-bedroom. It's currently vacant. You could stay there while you establish the freelance routine. Maya's guard went up again. Dante, I'm not offering to set you up as a mistress if that's what you're thinking. His voice was dry. I'm offering you a vacant property I own because you're now a valued employee, and Luca would be thrilled to have you nearby. The apartment sits empty most of the year. You'd actually be doing me a favor by keeping it occupied. How much is rent? Consider it part of your employment package, housing benefit. Dante, that's standard practice for executive-level employees who relocate. He cut her off smoothly. Maya, I'm offering you resources I have available. The apartment costs me nothing to let you use. Your proximity would make Luca happy, which makes my life easier. This is not charity. This is practical business arrangement. Maya pressed her fingers against her temples. Every objection she raised, he countered with perfect logic. He was either the most generous employer in history, or he was very, very good at manipulation. Why do you want me in Chicago? She asked bluntly. Really? What's your actual motivation here? Silence. Then Dante's voice, quieter and more honest than before. Because my son asks about you every day. Because he sleeps better knowing you're going to call. Because in 2 days, you've given him something I haven't been able to give him in 2 years. The feeling of being cared for by someone maternal. And selfishly, because I want to keep that going. He paused. I lost my wife when Luca was 2. He barely remembers her. I've tried hiring nannies, caregivers, but none of them connected with him the way you did in a few hours at an airport. I'm not asking you to replace his mother. I'm not asking you to be anything more than what you already showed yourself to be, someone who cares about his welfare. The honesty in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't manipulation. This was a father who loved his son and recognized something good when he saw it. Okay, Maya heard herself say. I'll come to Chicago. I'll stay in your apartment temporarily. But Dante, I need you to understand something. What? I'm not doing this just for the money or the housing. I'm doing this because I care about Luca. Because I meant it when I promised to be his mom that night. And if I'm going to be in his life, I need to know that you're not going to put him or me in danger because of whatever else you're involved in. The silence that followed was long. Maya held her breath, waiting. Maya, Dante finally said, his voice carrying a weight she hadn't heard before. I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone outside my organization. My wife, Isabella, died in a car accident. But it wasn't just an accident. It was a message, meant for me, from people who wanted to hurt me. Maya's blood ran cold. Since that day, Dante continued, I have restructured my entire life around keeping Luca safe. Every person who comes near him is vetted. Every location he visits is secured. Every risk is calculated and minimized. I failed to protect my wife. I will not fail to protect my son, or anyone who becomes important to him. He paused. You became important to him the moment you knelt down at that airport and promised to be his mom, which means you're now under my protection whether you asked for it or not. Anyone who wants to hurt you to get to Luca would have to go through me first. And Maya, I promise you, no one gets through me. The declaration should have been terrifying. Instead, Maya felt an unexpected sense of safety settle over her. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll be on a flight tomorrow. Send me the apartment address." "I'll do better than that. I'll have Marco pick you up from the airport." "What time does your flight land?" "Dante, I can take a cab. Marco will pick you up." His tone left no room for argument. "You're part of my organization now. That means you get security protocols whether you think you need them or not." After they hung up, Maya booked a flight back to Chicago for Friday morning. She texted her subletter that she'd be picking up her things from the apartment by the weekend. Then she called Luca. "Guess what?" Maya said when he answered. "I'm coming back to Chicago tomorrow." The shriek of joy that came through the phone was so loud she had to hold it away from her ear. "Really? Really, really? You're coming home?" "Really, really," Maya confirmed, smiling despite herself. "And Luca? I'm going to be around a lot more now. Is that okay with you?" "It's the best thing ever." Luca's excitement was palpable. "Maya, does this mean you're going to be my mom for real? Not just for one night?" Maya's breath caught. She didn't know how to answer that. Didn't want to promise something she couldn't deliver. "How about we start with me being your friend?" Maya said gently. "A really good friend who cares about you very much. Is that okay?" "Okay," Luca agreed. Then, more quietly, "But maybe someday you could be my mom for real?" "Maybe someday," Maya whispered. "Let's see what happens." When she hung up, she found a text from Dante. "Thank you for coming back. You have no idea what this means to him. Or to me." Maya stared at the message, then typed back. "I think I'm starting to understand." Friday morning, Maya landed at O'Hare with everything she owned, fitting into 2 suitcases and a backpack. As she emerged from baggage claim, she immediately spotted Marco waiting by a black sedan. "Miss Chen," he greeted her with a respectful nod. "Welcome back to Chicago. Let me take those for you." He loaded her luggage into the trunk with efficient ease, then held open the back door. Maya slid in, feeling strange about being driven around like this. The drive to Lincoln Park took 25 minutes. Marco didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable rather than awkward. When they pulled up in front of a beautiful brownstone building, Maya felt her stomach drop. "This is the apartment?" "Unit 3B, Marco confirmed. "Mr. Valentino had it stocked with basics: food, toiletries, linens. If you need anything else, just let him know." The apartment was stunning. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, huge windows overlooking a tree-lined street, 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, bathroom with a clawfoot tub. Furniture that was clearly expensive but comfortable. This wasn't just a vacant property. This was luxury housing. Maya stood in the middle of the living room, trying to process the fact that this was where she'd be living, rent-free, as part of her employment package. Her phone buzzed. "Dante. Marco confirmed you arrived safely. Take today to settle in. Luca wants to know if you're available for dinner tomorrow night. My place. Completely casual. Just the 3 of us." Maya typed back. "Tomorrow works. What time?" 6 p.m. Marco will pick you up at 5:45. And Maya? Thank you for this. For all of it." Maya set down her phone and walked to the window. Outside, Chicago was going about its business. Cars passing, people walking, life continuing in its normal chaos. But nothing about her life was normal anymore. 3 days ago, she'd been a struggling freelancer with no prospects. Now she was working for a man who was probably connected to organized crime, living in luxury housing, and somehow becoming a mother figure to a child who desperately needed one. She should be terrified. Instead, staring out at her new city, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. and the terrifying certainty that Dante Valentino and his son had just become the most important things in her world. Maya spent Saturday morning unpacking her meager belongings into the spacious Lincoln Park apartment. Her clothes looked lost in the massive walk-in closet. Her toiletries occupied maybe 1/10 of the bathroom counter space. The second bedroom sat completely empty, waiting for a purpose she hadn't defined yet. By noon, she'd explored the entire apartment 3 times, made coffee in the gleaming espresso machine, and written half an article about Italian wine imports. She was restless in a way that had nothing to do with the work, and everything to do with the dinner invitation sitting in her phone. 6 p.m., Dante's place. Just the 3 of us. Maya changed outfits 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a soft blue sweater. Casual but put together. She wanted to look nice for Luca. That was all. It had nothing to do with the fact that Dante Valentino's dark eyes had been haunting her thoughts since Friday. Marco arrived at exactly 5:45, as promised. The drive took them to Gold Coast, one of Chicago's most exclusive neighborhoods. Marco pulled up in front of a stunning limestone mansion that occupied an entire corner lot. Wrought iron gates, manicured gardens, architecture that screamed old money and power. "This is where Dante lives?" Maya asked, trying to keep the shock from her voice. "Mr. Valentino values privacy and security," Marco replied, which wasn't really an answer. He opened her door. "He's expecting you." The front door opened before Maya could knock, but it wasn't Dante standing there. It was Luca, practically vibrating with excitement. "Maya!" He launched himself at her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You came. You really came." Maya knelt down and hugged him properly. "Of course I came. I promised, didn't I?" "Luca, let her get inside before you tackle her." Dante's voice came from deeper in the house, warm with amusement. Luca grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her into the foyer. The interior was as impressive as the exterior. High ceilings, elegant furnishings, artwork that probably cost more than Maya's entire year's salary. But there were also signs of a child living here. Toys in a basket near the stairs, colorful drawings pinned to a corkboard in the hallway, a small jacket hanging on a hook at Luca height. Dante appeared from what looked like the kitchen, wearing dark jeans and a simple gray sweater that made him look younger and less intimidating than the suits he'd worn at the airport. His hair was slightly disheveled, and there was flour on his forearm. "You're cooking?" Maya asked, surprised. "Attempting to cook," Dante corrected with a slight smile. "Fair warning, I'm better at running restaurants than actually working in their kitchens. But Luca requested homemade pizza, and I'm not going to deny him that." "Can Maya help?" Luca asked hopefully. "She seems like she'd be good at cooking." "I don't know about good, but I can follow instructions," Maya offered. Dante's smile widened. "Then please, rescue me from my inadequacy." The kitchen was massive and clearly designed by someone who understood cooking. Professional-grade appliances, acres of marble counter space, a wine fridge that probably cost more than a car. Dante had ingredients spread across the island: flour, tomatoes, mozzarella, basil. "I made the dough earlier," he explained, gesturing to a bowl covered with a towel. "Or rather, my housekeeper made it before she left for the day. The rest is up to us." For the next hour, the 3 of them worked together making pizzas. Luca was given the important job of tearing basil leaves and arranging toppings. Dante handled the actual dough, stretching with surprising competence. Maya managed the sauce and cheese, offering gentle corrections when Dante's rustic pizza shapes became a bit too abstract. "You're judging my pizza-making skills," Dante observed, catching her expression. "I'm not judging, I'm assessing." "That sounds like judging with extra steps." "Your pizza is shaped like Illinois." "I'm just noting facts." Luca giggled. "It does look like Illinois." Dante looked down at his misshapen creation, then at Maya. Something passed between them. Warmth, humor, and ease that shouldn't exist between two people who barely knew each other. Illinois-shaped pizza has character, Dante defended. If you say so, Maya replied, unable to keep the smile from her face. They ate at the kitchen table rather than the formal dining room. The pizzas were actually delicious despite their questionable shapes. Luca chattered non-stop about his week at preschool, about the puppy he still desperately wanted, about the dragon story Maya had told him. Can you tell me another story tonight? Luca asked, tomato sauce on his chin. Before bed? Luca, Dante said gently. Maya might have other plans. I'd love to, Maya interrupted. She looked at Dante. If that's okay? Something flickered across Dante's face. Relief, maybe, or gratitude. Of course, though I should warn you, bedtime stories at the Valentino house come with extensive negotiations about lights out time. I can handle negotiations, Maya assured him. After dinner, Luca gave Maya a tour of the house. His room was on the second floor, a space that managed to be both luxurious and utterly childlike. There was an expensive wooden bed shaped like a pirate ship, but the sheets had cartoon dinosaurs. Built-in bookshelves held leather-bound classics alongside board books. A window seat overlooked the garden, currently piled with stuffed animals. This is Mr. Bear, Luca introduced, holding up a worn teddy bear that had clearly been loved hard. He was my mom's when she was little. Dad gave him to me when I turned 3. Maya's chest tightened. He's very handsome. And this is Dragon. Luca showed her a bright red stuffed dragon. I got him after you told me the dragon story, so I could remember it. That's perfect, Maya said softly. Does he have a name? Not yet. I'm waiting to see what happens in the next story so I can name him something good. They settled on the window seat. Luca curled against Maya's side while she spun a new tale, this time about the dragon's sister, who was afraid of fire even though she was supposed to breathe it. Maya made her voice soft and soothing, feeling Luca grow heavier against her as the story wound down. And the dragon's sister learned that being different wasn't bad, Maya concluded quietly. It just meant she had different gifts to share. Luca was nearly asleep. Maya? Yeah, honey? I'm really glad you came back. I thought maybe you wouldn't. Lots of people say they'll come back and then they don't. The pain in that simple statement was devastating. How many people had this child lost already? His mother to death, and apparently others to broken promises. I'm not going anywhere, Maya promised, stroking his hair. Not unless you want me to. Never, Luca mumbled, already halfway to sleep. Don't leave. Never. Maya sat with him until his breathing evened out completely, then carefully extracted herself and tucked him into his pirate ship bed. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Sweet dreams, sweetheart." Dante was waiting in the hallway when she emerged, leaning against the wall with an expression she couldn't quite read. How long have you been standing there? Maya asked quietly. Long enough to hear the end of the story. He pushed off the wall. You're good with him. Natural. He's completely comfortable with you. He's an easy kid to love, Maya replied. They walked downstairs together. Maya should probably leave now, call Marco for a ride back to the apartment. But Dante gestured toward the living room and she found herself following. The living room was elegant but lived in. Leather couches, a fireplace with actual fire crackling, bookshelves filled with both serious literature and children's books. Dante poured 2 glasses of red wine without asking if she wanted one, and handed her a glass before settling into the opposite end of the couch. Thank you for coming tonight, he said, for being patient with Luca, for making him feel special. I'm not doing it to be thanked, Maya said. I genuinely enjoy spending time with him. I know. That's why it matters. Dante took a sip of wine. Maya, can I ask you something personal? Depends on the question. Why don't you have children of your own? You're clearly maternal. You'd make an excellent mother. The question hit harder than he probably intended. Maya stared into her wine glass. I always thought I'd have kids someday, but my 20s were consumed by taking care of my mother. Then she died, and I was too busy surviving to think about building a family. And now I'm 28, single, and finally financially stable for the first time in years. Kids aren't exactly on the immediate horizon. Do you want them? Eventually? I think so. Maybe. I don't know. Maya looked up at him. Why are you asking? Dante was quiet for a long moment. Because my son is getting attached to you. Very attached. And I need to know if you're planning to stay in his life or if this is temporary. I need to protect him from another loss if possible. You're asking if I'm going to disappear. I'm asking what your intentions are. Dante's dark eyes held hers. I don't blame you if this situation is too complicated. If working for me while also becoming involved in Luca's life feels like too much. But I need honesty. For his sake. Maya set down her wine glass. Dante, when I promised Luca I'd be his mom that night at the airport, I meant it. I didn't know it would turn into this. Into a job. Into dinners at your house. Into bedtime stories. But now that it has, I'm not backing away. Not unless you want me to. Why? The question was direct, searching. Why commit to a child who isn't yours? To a situation that's undoubtedly complicated? Because he needs someone, and I have the capacity to be that person. Maya's voice was steady. Because I know what it's like to grow up missing a parent. Because when I look at Luca, I see a kid who's been through trauma and is still so full of love and hope. How could I walk away from that? Dante studied her face like he was trying to read truth written in her features. You're remarkable. Do you know that? I'm practical. There's a difference. No. You're remarkable. He leaned forward slightly. Maya, I need to be honest with you about something. When I ran your background check... You ran a background check on me? Of course I did. You spent 2 hours with my son. I needed to know who you were. Dante didn't look apologetic. I know about your mother's illness, the medical debt, your father's death when you were 12, the fact that you put yourself through college while working 3 jobs. I know you've been surviving on roughly $14,000 a year for the past 2 years. Maya felt exposed, invaded. That's pretty invasive. It's necessary, for Luca's safety. Dante's expression softened. But what I learned made me respect you more, not less. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You've been through hell and you still stopped to help a lost child. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. So you offered me an obscenely high salary because you felt sorry for me? I offered you an obscenely high salary because you're worth it, and because I wanted to remove financial stress from your life so you could focus on what matters. Dante set down his own glass. Maya, I'm going to be direct because I think you appreciate directness. I want you in Luca's life permanently. Not just as an employee who writes articles, as someone who cares about him, someone he can depend on. Like a nanny? Like family. The word hung between them, heavy with implications. Dante, we barely know each other. I know enough. His intensity was almost overwhelming. I know you kept a promise to a terrified 4-year-old when you had every reason to walk away. I know you talk to him every day even though you're not obligated to. I know you came back to Chicago partly for a job, but mostly because a child you barely know asked you to. That tells me you're exactly the kind of person I want in my son's life. Maya's heart was racing. What are you actually asking me? Dante stood and walked to the fireplace, staring into the flames. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. My wife died 2 years ago. Luca barely remembers her. I've tried to be enough for him, father and mother both. But I'm not. He needs maternal care, softness, the kind of nurturing I don't know how to provide. He turned to face her. I'm asking if you'd consider being that person, formally. Not just occasional dinners and phone calls, but actually being present in his life, helping raise him. You're asking me to be his mother, Maya said slowly. I'm asking if you'd be open to the possibility. Dante's expression was vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. Not immediately, not without taking time to build a real relationship. But eventually, yes. I'm asking if you could see yourself becoming part of this family. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story. Maya stood, needing to move. Dante, this is insane. A week ago, we didn't know each other existed. You can't ask someone to become a parent based on one airport encounter and a few phone calls. I can, when that someone has shown me more about their character in 1 week than most people reveal in years. He moved closer, not crowding her, but present. Maya, I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I'm asking you to stay open to the possibility while we get to know each other. Let Luca get attached to you because I think you're someone worth getting attached to. See where this goes naturally. And if I can't do this, if I realize I'm not cut out to be a mother to someone else's child, then we adjust. We figure out a different arrangement. Dante's voice was gentle. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're already halfway there. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. He was right, and that terrified her. Maya looked at him. This dangerous, powerful man who was asking her to be part of his family, who was offering her financial stability, purpose, and a child who desperately needed her. I need time, she said finally. I need to spend more time with Luca. Get to know him properly. Get to know you. This can't be rushed. Agreed. Take all the time you need. Dante pulled out his phone. But while you're deciding, I'd like to invite you to things. Family things. Luca has a school holiday concert next Friday. A birthday party for one of his friends next Saturday. Normal activities where you can see what our life actually looks like. You want me to come to a 4-year-old's birthday party? I want you to see what being part of Luca's life would actually entail. The mundane stuff, not just the bedtime stories and pizza dinners. He met her eyes. Is that too much to ask? No, Maya admitted. That's actually really reasonable. They stood there for a moment, the firelight casting shadows across the elegant room. Then Dante said quietly, Maya, can I ask you one more question? Okay. The night at the airport when you told Luca you'd be his mom, did you feel it? That instant connection? Maya thought back to kneeling on the airport carpet, looking into Luca's terrified eyes, feeling something shift in her chest when she made that promise. Yes, she whispered. I felt it. Good. Dante's expression was intense. Because he felt it too. And so did I when I saw you holding my son like he mattered to you. That kind of connection doesn't happen often. When it does, you don't walk away from it. Marco drove Maya home at 9 p.m. She spent the rest of the night sitting by her apartment window, watching the Chicago streets and trying to process what had just happened. Dante Valentino wanted her to become his son's mother. Not in some distant theoretical future, but now. Really, truly now. It was crazy. It was too fast. It was everything she'd never planned for. It was also the first thing that had felt genuinely right since her own mother died. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya fell into a routine that felt both surreal and natural. She worked from her apartment during the day, writing articles about Dante's various businesses. The work was legitimate and actually interesting. She interviewed chefs at his restaurants, toured his import warehouses, wrote profile pieces on his executive team. But the evenings belonged to Luca. Maya attended his preschool holiday concert, watching him sing Jingle Bells with more enthusiasm than pitch. She went to a birthday party at a children's museum, helping supervise 12 overstimulated 4-year-olds. She had dinner at the Gold Coast mansion 3 times a week, settling into an easy rhythm of cooking together, playing before bed, and telling stories until Luca fell asleep. And slowly, carefully, Maya got to know Dante. She learned that he took his coffee black with 1 sugar, that he ran 5 miles every morning at 6 a.m., that he spoke Italian when he was emotional and English when he was trying to maintain control, that he had a scar on his left shoulder from a business disagreement he refused to elaborate on. She learned that he read to Luca every night, even on nights when Maya did the bedtime story. He'd come in after and read 1 more book, just to extend the time with his son. That he kept every drawing Luca had ever made in a special portfolio. That he checked the locks on all the doors 3 times before going to bed, a ritual born from losing his wife. Isabella died because I wasn't careful enough, Dante told her one night in mid-December. They were sitting in his study after Luca had fallen asleep, sharing bourbon and conversation. There were threats. I knew there were threats. But I thought I'd handled them, thought I'd eliminated the risk. It wasn't your fault, Maya said quietly. Wasn't it? Dante's voice was bitter. I chose this life, these business dealings, the legitimate and the less legitimate. I knew it came with risks, but I thought I could protect her. I was wrong. Is that why you're so intense about security with Luca? I failed his mother. I won't fail him. Dante looked at her. And now that you're in our lives, I won't fail you either. I can take care of myself. I know you can, but you shouldn't have to. He leaned forward. Maya, do you understand what it means that I've let you into our home? Into Luca's life? I don't trust easily. Can't afford to. But I trust you. Completely. The weight of that trust was almost crushing. 3 days before Christmas, Luca asked Maya the question she'd been both expecting and dreading. Maya, are you going to be here for Christmas? They were in his room, building an elaborate Lego city on the floor. Dante was downstairs taking a work call. Do you want me to be here? Maya asked carefully. Yes. Christmas is supposed to be with family, and you're my family now. Luca looked up at her with those huge dark eyes. Right? You're my family? Maya's throat tightened. Luca, honey, Dad says you're thinking about staying forever. Is that true? Are you going to be my mom for real, not just for one night? This was too big, too important. Maya needed to talk to Dante before answering, needed to figure out what she was actually promising. But looking at Luca's hopeful face, she found the truth coming out anyway. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm staying. I'm going to be your mom for real if you want me to be. Luca threw his arms around her neck so hard they both nearly toppled over. I want you to be. I want it more than anything. Maya held him, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. Then that's what I'll be. Promise? Really promise? Not a promise that disappears? Really promise, Maya whispered. Forever promise. That night, after Luca was asleep, Maya found Dante in his study. He looked up when she entered, immediately reading something in her expression. What happened? Luca asked if I was staying, if I was going to be his mom for real. Maya closed the door behind her. I told him yes. Dante stood slowly. You did? I did. Because it's true. I'm not going anywhere. Maya moved closer. Dante, I don't know how this happened so fast. I don't know how I went from struggling freelancer to being a mother in 3 weeks. But I love him. I love your son. And I want to be part of his life permanently. Maya, let me finish. She held up a hand. I know this is complicated. I know there are things about your life, your business, that I don't fully understand. But I also know that you're a good father. that you love Luca more than anything, that you've built something here, a home, a life, that I want to be part of. Dante crossed the distance between them in 2 strides. He cupped her face with both hands, his touch gentle despite his obvious intensity. "Are you absolutely sure?" he asked. "Because once you commit to this, to us, I won't let you go easily. Luca can't handle another loss. And honestly, neither can I." "I'm sure," Maya said. "I've never been more sure of anything." Dante kissed her then. Not a gentle, testing kiss, but a claiming kiss. A kiss that spoke of possession and promise and desperate gratitude. Maya kissed him back, her hands fisting in his sweater, feeling something that had been building for weeks finally snap into place. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. Maya blinked. "What?" "Marry me. Not right away. Not until you're ready. But eventually. Make this official. Become Luca's legal mother. Become my wife." His dark eyes burned into hers. "I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But Maya, I haven't felt this certain about anything since the day Luca was born. You belong with us. You belong to us. Say yes." Maya should say no, should insist on more time, more caution, more rational decision-making. Instead, she heard herself say, "Yes. Okay. Yes." Dante's smile was brilliant and rare. He kissed her again, softer this time, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. "I'm going to take care of you," he promised against her lips. "You'll never struggle again. Never be alone. Never have to choose between paying bills and eating. I'm going to give you everything." "I just want you and Luca," Maya replied. "Everything else is extra." They told Luca on Christmas morning. He'd come running downstairs at 6 a.m., launching himself onto Maya's bed, in the guest room where she'd started staying most nights, too tired after late evenings to drive back to the apartment. "Maya, Maya, it's Christmas. Santa came." Dante appeared in the doorway seconds later, already dressed despite the early hour, looking amused at his son's excitement. "Luca, let Maya wake up properly before you drag her downstairs." "But presents!" Maya laughed, pulling Luca into a hug. Okay, let me put on my robe." They went downstairs together, the 3 of them, and Maya felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. This was family. This was home. After Luca had torn through his presents with typical 4-year-old enthusiasm, Dante pulled out one more box. Small, wrapped in silver paper. "This one's for Maya," he told Luca. Luca's eyes went wide. "Is it what we talked about?" "It is." Maya took the box, confused. Inside was a simple gold necklace with a small pendant, a stylized letter L. "It's for Luca," Dante explained. "So you always have him close to your heart. But there's something else." He pulled out another box. This one held a ring. Not a diamond. Something more meaningful. A gold band with 3 small stones. One dark blue, one green, one white. "Blue for Luca's birthstone," Dante explained. "Green for yours, and diamond for Isabella. Because she'll always be part of this family too." Maya's vision blurred with tears. "Dante? It's a promise ring, for now. When you're ready, we'll make it official. But I wanted you to have something that says, you belong to us." He looked at his son. "Luca, do you want to ask Maya?" Luca nodded seriously. He climbed into Maya's lap and took her hand. "Maya, will you be my mom? For real and forever?" "Yes," Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart. Forever and for real." Dante slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. 6 months later, Maya and Dante were married in a small ceremony in the garden of the Gold Coast mansion. Luca was the ring bearer, taking his job incredibly seriously. Marco stood as Dante's best man. Maya's former college roommate flew in from Seattle to stand as her maid of honor. It was simple and perfect and everything Maya never knew she needed. That night, after the guests had left and Luca was asleep, Maya stood in the master bedroom, her bedroom now, and looked at the wedding photos on her phone. Dante came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Any regrets? Not one, Maya replied honestly. She turned in his arms. 7 months ago, I was broke and alone and terrified. Now I have a husband, a son, and a life I never dreamed possible. How did this happen? You stopped at an airport, Dante said simply. You heard a child crying and you didn't walk past. You promised to be his mom for one night, and you changed everything. Best promise I ever made, Maya whispered. Best promise I ever received, Dante replied. Downstairs, in his pirate ship bed, Luca slept peacefully. His nightmares about losing people had finally stopped. He had a mother who kept her promises, a father who would protect him forever, and a family that had been built from one moment of kindness at an airport gate. And Maya Chen, who had once been so lost herself, had finally found exactly where she belonged, in the arms of a dangerous man who loved her fiercely, in the life of a child who needed her desperately, in a home built on impossible promises that somehow, against all odds, came true. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is kneel down beside a crying child and say, "Stop crying. I'll be your mom tonight." And sometimes, if you're very lucky, tonight turns into forever. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.